Welcome to Coleman Report Live. I'm Bob Coleman. We're talking Main Street and the small business lenders who help it grow. Stacy Sanchez is in the house. Stacy, so good to see you.
Thanks,
One of
Bob.
our SBA Professionals of the Year. There you are, getting your award in Phoenix last month. Congratulations. She's a loan officer with CDC Small Business. Says Orange County, but I know you're up in Northern California.
That's right. I cover 3 states, California, Arizona, and Nevada.
And she's Exhibit A in Riches and Niches, and she's embraced community advantage. So we're going to talk to her about that. Lance Sexton and Delaney, good to see both of you. Lance,
Bob,
I'm going to start with you. Lance, go ahead, Lance. I'll let you.
I was just going to say, Stacy is like me. She's also an SBA alumna.
Very good. I did not know that.
Yep. I was in the Santa Ana district for about 6 years.
I did not know that. That's now the Inland Empire district.
Right. Inland Empire's
largest district in the SBA system, as I recall, San Bernardino County.
That's right.
Lance, I'm going to start with you real quick. SBA went on record that said we would have a new SOP the last week of October, the first week of November. I checked the calendar. This is the last day of the last week of October. I haven't seen a new SOP. What have you heard? Anything?
I had heard the same thing, that we'd see an SOP now, or at least in the very near future. Now, the release that came out a couple of days ago talking about some of the changes did include changes that I was expecting to see in the new SOP. So I am wondering, and it's open for comment until December, if that is telegraphing a message to us that it may be later than we think, that it may be December before we see an SOP.
But Lance is referring to, Delaney, I don't think we've released it. I guess we talked about it last week a little bit in there. But let's, Delaney, next week, let's do a write-up on that and what's in that notice. And they're proposing changes to affiliation. I know that they're saying they're proposing that you don't need to get siblings' tax returns or your kids' tax returns, and they're codifying that. So that is out there. And as Lance said, I don't know the date offhand. It's sometime in December, Lance. Do you remember?
It was like December the 29th, I think, was the final day for comments. And I love the affiliation discussion, Bob, because they are supposed to simplify it for the new SOP. But in reading that notice, I had to read it several times before I was able to understand it.
I confess, my eyes glazed over a little bit too. So hey, let's start with Stacy. Wonderful story, Stacy. So your background, I stand corrected. I'm being an SBA alumnus. I guess alumni is plural. What do you do?
So I'm a loan officer with CDC Small Business Finance. I'm on the community loan program side of the house. Just celebrated 19 years with the company last month.
Wow.
And we make loans to small businesses in the $20,000 to $350,000 range that don't qualify for bank financing. Community Advantage is under the 7A umbrella. It's basically allows non-bank lenders to make SBA loans up to $350,000.
Do you have authority to do that? Do you have a quasi PLP? Do you have to submit it to Sacramento? How does this? It's
a true PLP status. We are a preferred lender, and we cover California, Arizona, Nevada. We've just recently opened up a couple of cities across the country: Dallas, Fort Worth, and Georgia. Atlanta, Georgia area, the Baltimore, Maryland, DMV as it's referred to, and Detroit, Michigan. And in all those areas, we are a PLP lender.
Now, CDC Small Business has merged with a group back east. Are you going to keep the name CDC Small Business, or is there going to be a new name involved?
CDC Small Business Finance will remain as one of our legacy corporations. We're now part of the Momentous Capital family, which includes ventures, capital, direct capital, and capital impact partners. So multiple companies under one company name, Momentous Capital.
Real quick, what is the guarantee percentage on a Community Advantage loan?
Same as a regular 7A loan. We get the 85% and 75% depending on the dollar amount.
Any break on fees?
Right now, through the end of the fiscal year, SBA is waiving guarantee fees for loans under $500,000. So that would include our program. Anybody applying now, the SBA guarantee fee will be waived through September 31st. So that's a little bit more money in everybody's pocket.
Why would someone come talk to you for a community advantage loan versus a non-bank lender such as Fountainhead for a traditional 7A loan?
Probably the credit flexibility that we're able to offer. CDC, Small Business Finance, as a community advantage lender, does not have a personal collateral requirement. We have a very flexible with our credit requirements. We don't have a minimum FICO as long as they can meet the SBA predictive index number. And we really focus on ability to pay and look at projections-based loans on a regular basis, startups, acquisitions, new product launches, really diving deep into the client's request. So it's really our credit box that would drive somebody to us.
Average loan size?
About $175,000.
So it's a large amount. Okay.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah.
Tell us how long have you been doing community advantage lending?
Well, CDC was one of the first lenders approved when the program was launched in 2010, sorry. We were one of the first 10. So I've been at it since it started.
Bob,
Go ahead, Lance.
Stacy just sets off a light bulb in my head. Stacy, we continually hear from the administrator, from Congress, from the president that SBA needs to reach more underserved markets. And it sounds to me like that's exactly what you're doing.
That is exactly what we're doing, Lance. And, with that comment, I would like to say that CDC is one of 260 community advantage lenders across the nation. And the program is still in pilot status. We'd love to see it be permanent. And I think that requires more participation from financial institutions to send their declines and find a community advantage lender in their area that they can support with the loans that they can't do, so that there are more opportunities for borrowers who don't qualify for traditional 7A lending to still get the benefits of what SBA 7A lending is all about.
Well, the program has bipartisan support. It's not going anywhere. So I agree with you. Ridiculous that it's a temporary program. Go ahead, Lance.
Yeah, brief follow-up. Wouldn't it make sense if we want to reach more underserved markets with SBA financing to make Community Advantage a permanent program and to launch more funding into Community Advantage?
You certainly have my support.
Stacy, what do you do as an evangelist? How do you spread the word, and how do you get loans to underwrite for your institution?
I reach out to a lot of financial institutions to have them use me as a resource when they can't assist their clients. Sometimes it's just a matter of time for them to have a community advantage loan and be ready for a bank loan in just a couple of years. I work with a lot of the SBA resource partners, the women's business centers, SCORE, small business development centers, do webinars or workshops or just direct outreach to those programs. And I love to talk about great success stories. Sometimes people can see themselves in those stories and are less intimidated about reaching out and asking questions.
All right, that's a nice segue. Give us a success story. Give us a story that you're especially proud of that you were involved with.
One of my very favorite clients is a restaurant in Anaheim, Georgia's, and they came to us through the Small Business Development Center with a big project, and we weren't able to assist them, sent them back and said, maybe look at doing something smaller. So they came back with a smaller project, and it took a while, but we were able to get them approved, and they opened up in the Anaheim, oh darn, I'm blanking on the name of the place, anyway, one of the food halls in Anaheim, and they've been very successful. I was able to place them with a financial institution when they went to open location number 2,
Nice.
and then gave them some additional working capital when they were growing. And then we were there for them when they needed PPP. So they're doing really well, and it's a perfect example of generational wealth happening. She was in her 70s when they launched their first location,
Wow.
and her family now is completely different situation with their 2 very successful restaurants. So that's, to me, is what it's all about.
You mentioned that generational wealth. I know that's one of your missions in terms of your operation. Your past president, Kurt Chilcott, who retired, was very active in that. Is that, hey, we want to build generational wealth for the second and third generations.
Right. And they're a good example of that.
Well, Stacy, congratulations. That's awesome. And you got your award. That's Bob Judge of Government Loan Solutions. He was the sponsor of that, so it was great to have you. It was great to meet you. For all you past winners for the last, I don't know. Well, we're going to open it up to all past winners. We're going to do something in Vegas in April. It's going to be a lunch. We're going to honor a couple people who have emeritus status, I don't know, Hall of Fame status. We'll figure it out. We're going to do something special for that. But we'll do something. We're going to open it up for you and a guest to come on Bob Judge's dime. So we like spending his own money.
That sounds great. I would love that.
Yeah.
I had a great time in Arizona.
Yeah, no, it was great. You're welcome to stick around. We're going to talk about for Fraud Friday. Delaney, you're up. Stacy, we'd like to talk once a week about case studies of what not to do.
Yes.
That's it. What did Tamika do while she was working for Wells Fargo?
Yes, we talked about this a little bit last week. I've since found out that she apparently worked as a fraud analyst at Wells Fargo. Now, she was indicted along with 2 others for a PPP fraud scheme. They were saying that Tamakia would charge fees from $2,000 to $5,000 for her help to file fraudulent PPP loans. With this, she would inflate the borrower's income to get the biggest possible PPP loan. She would also create counterfeit IRS forms. By the way, let me throw this in there. It's all alleged. You need to make sure and put that one out there.
Yeah, you're right. She was indicted, so that is alleged. Go ahead.
Yes. So
good catch. Thank you.
she allegedly submitted and helped create over 30 PPP loans for over $900,000.
Wow.
Now, there was another bank employee. I haven't been able to gather enough information to confidently disclose what bank she worked for, but she allegedly applied for 2 PPP loans in her name, and with the help of Tamakia, got some false tax documents and obtained over $100,000. And then the last individual had a previous criminal conviction and also submitted for a PPP loan with fictitious IRS forms.
Lance, you are allowed to help someone and you can charge them a fee. Why is the Department of Justice hitting her with these fees?
Well, first of all, Bob, you're not supposed in the PPP program to charge the borrower a fee. You can charge the lending institution that you refer the loan to a fee. In this case, she was charging individuals, so that was a problem to begin with. So again, it would not be a problem if Tamakia or whatever her first name is, for instance, charged Bank XYZ $2,000 for the referral of the PPP loan. But she's definitely not supposed to. I mean, it's in the IFR. The individual borrower is not supposed to pay a fee for assistance in preparation of a PPP loan. I think the thing that really jumps out to me is she works in the fraud department and commits fraud.
And now she's facing 17 charges of fraud.
Yeah,
so
I mean, and she's obviously young, so she's going to lose all that potential wealth as she matures and gets older within the institution. She's not going to have access to that, so that's too bad.
one of the biggest challenges with this too, as Delaney was describing it, she was helping people create false tax returns. And right now, PPP lenders that are still working through some of the forgiveness process, SBA is reviewing tiny PPP loans and coming back at us and saying, we want a 18, 19, and 20 tax return. And part of the reason and that's not in the IFR, was not required as part of the application, but if you read the little sentence, SBA always has a sentence that says, anything else we'd like to see.
Yes.
And that's what's happening here because of people who created fake fraudulent tax returns. Now SBA is wanting to see more information to prove that there is a legitimate business behind the PPP loan. So, I hate what was done here, especially by a bank employee, and even more so, a bank employee that worked in the fraud department.
Stacy, in your travels, how often do you come across a incident where you think it's pretty likely that this is a fraudulent application?
I've been very fortunate. I've really only seen it a couple of times where the tax returns not matching the verification or the questions just aren't being legitimately answered. But I've been really lucky. I'm going to say just a handful of times over my 20 years.
Yeah, and for someone who's been in the business that long, you and Lance, when you see it, you know it right away. I mean, it just
and what Stacy was saying rings true with me. All the 4506T submitted over the years, maybe once or twice was there a variance between the transcripts and the tax returns. In your regular 7A Community Advantage, but your regular 7A lending, yeah, there are instances of fraud, but not like there was in PPP.
This is becoming more and more prevalent. This is the second case, I believe, Delaney. What do we need to know about False Claims Act, and why does it affect the industry?
Oh boy, that's an interesting question.
You can call in a lifeline with your dad if you wish. You get one a show.
Well,
I might have to here.
the
Go to the next slide. Go to the next slide, Joseph. Go ahead, Lance.
The False Claims Act deals with when a financial institution has submitted information that they know is fraudulent. On your SBA Form 1920, and that's not PPP, but even on the SBA lender's form for PPP, the lender signs off, and there's a certification to the best of your knowledge the information is true and accurate. And the False Claims Act would come into play when someone who should know submitted something that they knew was not true and accurate to the best of their ability.
Yeah, and anybody can file a False Claims Act. So when you see it, when you see something wrong, say something and go up the chain with it, and do not try to hide it, because anybody can go ahead and say, hey, you're not supposed to do that. I mean, that's really what this is about. Finally, what did Mr. Sadler do, Delaney?
Well, he was just sentenced to 3.5 years of prison for receiving and applying for $1.7 million in PPP. He worked for Aviron Pictures, and he applied for the company and its related entities, claiming they had 33 employees at each of these companies, when in fact none of them were operational anymore, and he had actually been fired from the company 4 months earlier for a previous embezzlement issue with the company. He did get these loans, and he did use money, of course not on employees. I'm sorry to say there's no cars this time, but utility bills, mortgage expenses, and his personal lawyer. The money has been seized, but
the guy didn't have any fun at all, Bob. He just paid.
Well, see, and he already has another, he got 72 months for his other embezzlement situation where he misappropriated $25 million from the company. So now he's going to have to serve these back to back.
Well, and the lawyer, shame on him or her, and the Department of Justice, they're pretty smart, and I'm sure they will attempt to claw back whatever they can from that. I mean, the fact that they're saying they paid his lawyer, they're looking at that hard. And if they can claw it back, they absolutely will. Stacy, that's what we talk about.
Well, and fortunately or unfortunately, depends on how you look at it, I think we'll be talking about PPP fraud for quite some time.
Do not, yeah. I mean, just because don't do it. Don't do it. The government moves slow, but when they want to go after you, they got some pretty smart people who, you are not the smartest person in the room. Lance, we just announced we're going to talk about our 13th annual hotel in about a month. We're putting that together, and that's going to be a fun one. Stacy, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it. Again, congratulations, Delaney and Lance. Good to see you both. And thank you for joining us today for Coleman Report Live and supporting America's Main Street, one entrepreneur at a time.
Have a great weekend.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today for today's episode. If you like today's content, hit that subscribe button to subscribe to our channel and click that bell icon to get notified about our latest videos. Thank you again for joining us today and for supporting America's Main Street, one entrepreneur at a time. Catch you next time.